Good evening, Mech Warriors. Welcome. My name is RJ Bass, RJ Bass, RJ Fish, RJ Trout. Doesn't matter. Whatever you want to call me. You ask Phil from NG, he'll always say Bass. But welcome, Mech Warriors. Special stream tonight. Following up on my interview series. We've got another fantastic dev from PGI with us tonight.
Hello.
That is Lauren Bamlett. Am I saying that right, Bamlett?
Bamlett? Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
most people get it wrong. Okay. That's okay. Hey, Mark.
People have always had the things that they love about this game and the things that they don't love about this game. When people have a gripe, they're usually really loud about it. But one thing that always seems to be a positive about this game, no matter what the game might be going through at the time, one thing that people always seem to agree on is that the artwork in this game is phenomenal, and I have always believed that. And
thank you.
Lauren, everybody, is one of the texture artists from PGI. A couple weeks ago we had Mark Nicholson on. He's a 3D designer for MechWarrior Online. He's in the Twitch chat right now. After he gets done with the mech, he passes it over to Lauren, and Lauren then adds all the cool features that we like. So, Lauren, how you doing tonight? What's going on? How was your day today? Tell us.
Really good. I'm sure, like you and most people in the chat, everybody went and saw the Eclipse, or what they could see of the Eclipse. It was really great, actually. We at work, we all kind of poured out for a little bit to watch. What was it, like our 85% coverage? What we could see in Vancouver before heading back to work. Yeah, otherwise I'm great. How are you?
Not bad. Same thing, only, we were talking about this a minute ago. I'll tell the viewers as well. Most of my regular viewers know I live in Kansas City, and we were in the very southern part of the totality zone for the Eclipse. The actual edge of the shadow was about 5 miles to the south of us, so we got a full, probably minute and a half in totality with the Eclipse, and it was amazing because we had this high thin layer of clouds, and it turned, like, you see all the images of the totality, you see yellow or white coming from behind the moon. We saw a blue ring, very much like the blue sun that you see on, I think it's Vitric Forge, the faction warfare map in the game. So it was totally dark outside. You could see the stars, the bugs were coming out, the street lights were coming on, the birds got quiet, and there was this beautiful blue ring glowing up in the sky. It was like totally from another world. It was absolutely amazing. One of the best things I've seen in nature ever. But wish y'all could have been there.
Actually, a number of the people from the studio went south. I don't know if I think they went to Oregon, but a couple coworkers went down to see the totality, which is cool.
Is that where Matt was?
I'm not sure.
Okay, 'cause I heard it from other sources that Matt was not in the office today, so I can only imagine that's what he did. But it would be worth it, though. I mean, it was just incredible. Well, anyways, let's get to talking about you. You're the whole reason why this stream is happening tonight. So let's discuss you. Well, first, why don't you give the viewers a kind of a brief rundown of your basics with PGI? Well, like some of the stuff you sent me in email. Why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself?
For sure. So, do you want like my job, or kind of like me coming to PGI?
Well, let's give us start with coming to PGI and what you're doing now, and then we'll go over some details after that.
Sure. It's awesome. Yeah, I'll ramble. It's easy. Yeah. So essentially, in 2015 is when I started at Piranha Games. I think it was actually middle of March 2015, and I originally, at the time, I had been living in Toronto, but when I got the job for Piranha Games, that prompted me to move. I always knew I wanted to end up on the West Coast at some point or another, whether it's temporary or permanent. I wanted to kind of see more of Canada or see more of the world in general. So it kind of had started that like maybe 5 months before my hire, roughly. I had been going through the application process for the texture artist. But yeah, upon starting as a texture artist, it's actually, I don't know if this was intentional, but it's very convenient that you interviewed Mark first, because essentially it's like, oh, Mark then gives the work to me.
Right. Right.
But essentially, yeah, Mark will, as you know, will go through the modeling process in creating a mech. Modelers will unwrap and bake the normal maps for the mechs, if anyone knows what that means, or if Mark.
I do not know what that means.
Oh, okay. Ooh, it's complicated a little bit. It's kind of the process in which at least what I described to other people is kind of what made gaming move from the PlayStation 1 to the PlayStation 2. And essentially, it's like an expanded upon height map, which I know I'm throwing out more complicated, more complex words. But it's kind of a way in which we can push more details onto the models without throwing in more vertices or polygons. But regardless, I wanted to specify though that the modelers do this for us, because there are some companies where that job might fall onto me, and it's kind of important to note that like some companies they take Mark's job and they take my job and they just mush it together, and that's perfectly normal. Like it's kind of almost like 50-50, I feel like, where it's like some companies make it so you're more specialized in your role, and some of them you just do every part of the pipeline. But regardless,
well, is
as
that
a texture artist?
Is that the reason why these mechs in this game end up looking so good? I mean,
It might be.
We can look at robots in a lot of other games, and they just they look good, but they're not like. I mean, I look at I only know if the mech I'm looking at right now in my game. I'm looking at the Kentaro 18 Champion Edition. I don't even know if this is one that you designed, but and overall, in my opinion, it's not a very good mech unless you're planning on bringing lerms, but still, it looks badass. I mean, it just has a very detailed look to it. So, I mean, is that, I don't know, I guess, because again, the artwork is something in this game that we all very much appreciate and love. And it seems to be head and shoulders above many other games that feature robots or this style of maybe a futuristic combat. Is that because the 3D modelers like Mark and the texture artists like yourself are separated, and it's two different sides of the same coin there?
I think so. I can definitely see that. Particularly given that like the mechs in many ways are essentially characters, as opposed to like a weapon or a prop, because they're very complex parts, and the amount of work that goes into them, or the time in which it takes for us to complete a mech, is quite impressive and substantial, I would say. But I think that's probably why they went with that decision, because they are so. It's such a large task that the more you can specialize your employees, the better it will be. And that's kind of a case with myself is like I went to school to be a 3D environment artist, and I have done work doing such, but I've always enjoyed texturing more than modeling. I can do both, but I've always enjoyed one process more than the other, and I think, I don't know if Mark is the same, but I feel like when we have this division, we're allowed to pick what our interests are, and I think that might probably play into because then we're able to express within our passions more than just, well, I gotta do both kind of case.
So, Mark creates the 3D model.
Yep.
You add in all okay. Give me a mech a recent mech that you've done.
Well, any of the Civil War ones that just got released, or even the Shadowcat.
Shadowcat, okay, like the Shadowcat Hero. Did you do that one?
The Hero, yeah.
I've been playing that one a lot. Let's look at that real quick.
Oh, perfect. I'll pull it up on my end too.
Okay. Go to the home page here, and I'm gonna turn on the game. so we're gonna go away, but they're gonna see.
Okay.
All right. So I've got mine. I changed my colors a little bit here, but so when Mark was on the interview a couple weeks ago, the images he was showing us were basically just the plain green. It was the mech. You could clearly see the mech and the work that went into it, but none of the details. So I'm looking at my Shadowcat. I'm assuming you did the paint, the paint job on it, and then do you add in like if I look at the legs on this thing, if I look at his left leg from the side profile, do you add in things like these big screw gear looking things and
The metal bits.
yeah, is that your job there?
Oh yeah, the Shadowcat in particular wasn't one where I did the base material for, but that's actually kind of where we start. Is we start with kind of laying the foundation. So when we get the model and we get the normal map, we start to begin to like texture the mech in its base form. Like we do call it the base texture essentially, and so that's kind of we're doing things like, adding dirt or adding grime, making certain areas paint or metal, and we have a variety of metal materials that we work with. And there's like little subtle rule sets that we also have when it comes to kind of building a mech. In the certain ways, like we'll always use a gunmetal for like a barrel or anything that might have some kind of heat exhaust coming off of.
Okay.
Whereas we'll use steel for kind of parts that are maybe more indicative of like a internal structural kind of piece. So sometimes like
when you say gunmetal and steel, you're talking about just the color tones, right?
Well, it's like the actual materials itself, like the different types of metals.
Okay.
But yeah. Oh, and then there's a slight variety to what we'll have with Innersphere and Clan too. I think off the top of my head, can't quite recall, but I think I'm trying to remember which one has more steel. But there's like little subtle things that we kind of do just to kind of add like a little bit of variety within our kind of like our universe, or at least like as a visual distinction.
Well,
one thing we do.
Just to get an idea, I pulled up the Shadowcat A. I don't have any special.
Okay.
I mean, I got paint on it, but I don't have any special patterns on it or anything here. So, is this what you're talking about, like with the gunmetals and stuff? The
Yeah, and that's actually quite good that you pulled up it's kind of essentially the base for the Shadowcat, because that's another thing too. It's like when we make a clan, until you apply a camo, it's predominantly, or at least 50-50, depends on the mech, but it's mostly metal. And that was kind of it was before my time, but it was kind of a stylization choice that was made to kind of further distinguish the Innersphere mechs and the clan mechs. But you can definitely see the different types of metals when applying those base textures.
Okay. All right. Well, so yeah, Mark models it. You start putting your work into it. What application do you predominantly use when working with these mechs? Is this something that's readily available to the public that doesn't cost an arm and a leg and people can start playing with? Or
it typically costs an arm and a leg, but there are software out there that you can use either for free or very cheap prices. So Mark is obviously going to, I think he's just predominantly in 3ds Max, which is a standard modeling kind of program. In fact, like that's what I was trained in. Some people use Maya as well, but regardless, for us, we actually used to primarily work in Mudbox, which you would have seen from our dev streams. And why we were using it is because it allowed us to paint on surface details onto the mech itself, as opposed to kind of fiddling with that oh so complicated UV unwrap, where we things are unwrapped and laid out in a variety of kind of directions and shapes and patterns that if you look at it, you can't really distinguish where a leg is or where the top of maybe a cockpit is or whatnot. So we make sure to use 3D. Yeah, Mudbox is a 3D modeling program as well. It's not commonly used for that, mind you, but we want to, so long as we have that face we can paint on, that's really effective for us. And in fact, though, I say Mudbox because you guys have seen us with Mudbox, but recently we've made the switch over to Mari, which is more primarily seen in movie pipelines or VFX, as far as I understand. But it's more that it's more in depth than Mudbox, so it's kind of the shift that we've always wanted to make. And now the company has supported us in that.
I've always wondered about that because, you know, so many movies, especially sci-fi, fantasy movies, are pretty much, from what I've heard actors in interviews recently say, actors are always saying, well, if you haven't acted in front of a green screen lately, then you just haven't acted in anything modern. With so much CGI going into the movie market, I was wondering, and maybe it's just me wondering this, but I always wondered when that emergence of the games we play and what we see on the big screen would happen. And so basically, from what you're saying there, what was the name of that app that you said you guys just moved to?
Mari.
Mari. So you're saying that's mostly used in film production?
At least as far as I understand, yeah, it's more primarily than that. I think it's also I think it's a lot more expensive than the typical modeling software that at least gaming uses. But
okay. All right. Well, when we using that program or the program that you used previously, which mech that you worked on are you absolutely most proud of? And can you walk us through it at all?
Oh man, that's kind of a tough one because I don't want to pick the dorky answer, but I'm proud of a lot of them.
No, well, okay, but again, we're not. This isn't about the mech's playability in the game, okay?
Of course.
And if we're just talking about the artwork here, there isn't a dorky answer because all of these mechs look really good. So, whatever answer you give, I'm sure, well, at least I'll be just fine with it. If anybody else has a problem with it, whatever. They don't count.
Of course. Okay. I think, generally speaking, and it might be due to it being a fairly recent release, but also I felt like it was really close to me, but I really loved the work that I did on the clan wave. I guess that would be 1 and 2 heroes. So we kind of see this out like the Direwolf, the Warhawk, Nova, Stormcrow, Kitbox, Adder, Summoner, and Timberwolf. Well, I named them all. What do you know?
I don't think I have any of those.
That's okay. I can pick others.
Well, I want to pick one that you're most
but they
proud
are
of.
all on my.
Well,
okay, because they're all on my portfolio.
I'm gonna go to the store. Look at heroes. Let's pull up the Direwolf because that's an old favorite of mine. Oh, is it not available in the store yet?
Ooh.
I don't think it is. If it is, oh yeah, they're not in alphabetical order.
I don't think so. Because I think they're still for like real world currency.
I see the Warhawk, Supernova, Direwolf. Here we go. Yeah, it's in the store.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, I'm looking at it right now, and that totally disco paint job.
Yes. It's funny you picked that one actually, because the inspiration that I chose behind it was I love synthwave. Which is kind of like a 80s music, I guess, kind of, I don't know, mixed with a sort of electronic kind of vibe. I don't know. I just fully love it. So I was definitely taking a lot of inspiration from the style of albums or that kind of gets tied in with synthwave.
Are you a fan of Gary Newman?
Oh, I'm really bad with names.
Okay, he did the song Cars. It's
Okay.
considered synthwave. I'll send you a link. But I was listening to some
It sounds
remixes.
familiar.
Yeah, you'd know it if you heard it.
That tends to be how I am. It's like, oh, do you know this? And I'm like, probably, but I don't know the name.
Okay. But like that 80s synthwave stuff. I was listening to remixes of that today actually. Curiously
Nice.
enough, I heard a modern version of the song on Proton's stream, and it made me look it up. And I was listening to remixes of it today, so you brought that up. But yeah, I definitely got that feeling from looking at this mech here. Very has a very synthwave thing. So what looking at the Star Wolf, what part, what area, I mean, is there one thing in particular on it that you put a lot of work in and you're just really, really proud of?
I think for this one it was probably the generation of the texture itself. I'm looking at it right now, yeah, because for a number of our programs, a number of our camos, actually, what we do is we use Maya to fractal bake the patterns onto the mechs, and what that essentially sort of is that it's almost as if I'm taking a texture, like a 2D image, and I'm telling the software to kind of apply it to the mech in a very calculated manner that I'm able to essentially decide. And whether that means that it's almost as if, because there's a lot more in-depth ways of doing it too, where it's almost as if you're applying a 3D texture onto a 3D asset, which is a little confusing.
Is this kind of where the wrapping thing comes in? Because I'm trying to picture it in my head. So let's say this synthwave disco paint job that's on here, that's considered part of the texture, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned a second ago that you take a 2D image and apply it to the 3D model. And so I'm picturing it now, like if you were taking something like a flat, like wrapping a box in wrapping paper.
Oh, yeah.
You have to fold it over and cut it in different places, try to make it look like it all meshes. Is that a similar layman's way of describing it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's a really good way of putting it. Because essentially, I can give an inorganic and an organic example for that. Because it's exactly that. Like usually people say, imagine a present that's wrapped, and it's like, or just a box, but you want to take apart that box, or you want to kind of roll it out, and then it's almost as if. But what my job is that Mark has gone and cut up the box so that it can be laid flat, essentially in that like T shape that you can kind of turn a cube into, and then I draw on it, and then I put it back together, and then we put it in the game in a very simple way of putting it. Another way of also putting it, like let's say this was a humanoid or a character, it's kind of like skinning an animal. It's kind of the best way of putting it.
Okay.
Because you're trying to find a way of like taking a 3D object and then like flattening it into 2D space, so that you can then apply onto it.
My apologies. I was looking at this mech and I didn't put it up on screen. Herp.
No worries.
Doing good.
You can also, on my portfolio, I do have a kind of, it's a weird example of an unwrap, but there is one there. Maybe.
Can you link me your portfolio? Or did you put that in the email originally?
I did, but I can.
I got your email.
Okay.
Okay.
I will say it's so nice to like. It's like I'm streaming, but I don't have to do like any of the work.
Okay, so let's do this. I'm gonna turn that off, and I'm going to move. Come here.
Mark's got it. Flattening in an animal pelt.
All right. So now I can turn this back on, but we're going to. I'm gonna mess with it a little bit here. We're just gonna shrink it down. Okay, so I got it up on stream right now. That looks like that's the dire wolf right there. Let's see what we get here.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, if you click it, it'll kind of expand upon.
Oh. Okay, so what are we looking at with this bottom image here?
Okay, so the unwrap.
Is that what that is? That's the unwrap right
Yeah.
there?
So it's what I've essentially done, because our mechs will use 5 textures, and we will use a shader to kind of bring those textures together so that they kind of define what you see in game. And so if you're looking at the texture here, what I've done is in order to compile from my portfolio the 5 textures all together, I've just kind of split them apart. So the first one is the normal map. The second one is our diffuse. The third one is our RGB. The fourth one is the spec map, and the fifth one is the gloss. And so the normal map is kind of what I was defining as this is what essentially allows us to put more detail into the mechs. The diffuse, it's a little. It's almost as if it's kind of like we definitely treat our diffuse differently, and I think that's because we have the RGB map that ties in with it. But it's almost as if the diffuse is kind of like the color information. So if it was wood on this mech, then on the diffuse is where you're gonna define it as like brown. RGB, that's separating the 3 channels. I have gone over this I think a couple times when I've been streaming. The spec map is fascinating because it indicates to CryEngine how shiny the object is, and the gloss map ties in with the spec map, and it's in sort of that information, but it's not so much the shininess, but rather the sharpness of that kind of light beam, because you can imagine that like something that is very matte has a much wider kind of reflection than something that's maybe like a really polished steel is going to have like more of that pinpoint kind of shine to it. So that map, that last one, defines how kind of wide or small that light reflection will be.
Okay, so looking at these 5 pieces here, I know that it came from the Direwolf with that classic synthwave camo pattern on it. But when I look at this, I mean, I'm trying to envision how the entire mech is in one of these strips. But then I look at it closer, and it seems like all of these are one big picture, and you just put the 5 different. I don't know. See, I don't know anything about 3D design.
Texture.
Yeah.
No worries. The textures. Yeah, and that's kind of the essentially the complicated part of our job, because what you see is the dire wolf and essentially how I've presented it, but on my end and behind all the curtains and whatnot, I'm kind of creating this appearance through the amalgamation of these many different textures, and having a knowledge base of the software and the methodology and whatnot. I'm able to take these different essentially textures and create what you guys see.
I see. And okay, so Mark is done with the 3D model. He hands you the work. It's time for you to start your. I think if I remember correctly, I think he said he usually gets like 8 weeks, 8 weeks to make a model once he's handed the drawing. Is that
okay?
Is that right? So okay. So 8 weeks is up. He's done. He's ready to go out for beers. He hands you the work. How long are we talking for you to take the 3D model that Mark has finished to the point where Russ says, "Great, ship it."
Ship it. Okay. I think typically, because there is always a little bit of a buffer, but we don't always necessarily need that buffer.
Okay, let me rephrase that then. Mark hands you the work. You do your work to it. From how much time does PGI give you?
I'm trying to think. I think it's. I feel like it's either, if it's not 1 month, it's a little bit beyond that. But I know generally speaking, like for me, if you gave me like The base texture might. That one probably could take me maybe a week and a half, possibly 2. And it's similar with the patterns. It's like it could take me a week and a half, possibly 2. So in terms of my efficiency, giving myself extra room for those just who knows what happens kind of scenarios, I think typically a month is a fair indication of how long it would take me, given those kind of safety nets as well.
All right, and so Mark hands you the work. How many 3D modelers are there at PGI? Rough guess.
For Mark, like
Yeah.
Mark's specific
Yeah.
job, there's 4.
Okay, I'm pretty sure you answered that 2 weeks ago. And how many texture artists are there at PGI?
There's 3.
3. Okay.
Yeah.
So the 3D modelers, they get done with the mech, they hand it to you. Other ones hand them to the other texture artist. Do you only work on one mech at a time, or do you usually have multiple mechs going at the same time?
We typically have multiple going at the same time. Depending on development, things can change. Like there have been cases where I have done the base texture and the skins, but then there's cases, and a little bit more as of recently, where Jonty, another texture artist on the team, he'll do the base texture, and then I'm doing the skins. But it does kind of change up depending on how things are going, because we also do get tossed other tasks, right? Like the the clan heroes were essentially like uh, an additional kind of work on top of our priorities, which would be the mech packs. But yeah, like we definitely do have multiple going at the same time. It does depend a little bit on the release. Like if we're doing single packs, it can vary. But one thing I kind of find kind of funny is that because what Mark will do is he will take, what did he say, like 8 weeks to finish his mech, and then he'll pass it on to us. But he's not gonna see it in game for possibly like, oh my god, it could be from anywhere from like 2 months. I'm wondering, Mark, if you know, because you're probably sitting waiting for the releases more than I am, because I'm at the end of development. But god, possibly 2 or 3 months until he sees his work in game, so he definitely has to wait much longer.
Wow. So
yeah, look at him, he has to wait a long time.
yeah, that's what he's saying right now. Actually, I'm looking at it in the Twitch chat. All right, so which out of all the mechs that you have worked on, which one did you find to be the hardest or most frustrating?
Oh yes, my god, the IIC mechs were probably the most difficult, or I don't know if difficult is the right word, but certainly possibly either frustrating or just yeah, I guess frustrating is probably the best word for that one. No, they're great mechs, and I think they look really great in the end. It was more so just like in terms of a on my end side of things, with the way that development had progressed with them. They were, because they're essentially the old mechs but built upon.
Right.
We were part using old geometry with new geometry, and what that kind of meant in the end for a couple of them is that the UV unwraps were a little more separated or kind of segmented than we usually do. So it was a little difficult, and more so, I think, honestly, just because of our software and the way that it handles jumping between 2 separate models. I found it incredibly difficult to paint the patterns onto them. It didn't change anything like in terms of the output, but there was a little bit of that, like pulling your hair out, fighting the software, just because of how things are. And it's fine that it came to be that way, but definitely, like, that's kind of why we have safety nets sometimes placed in development timelines, because you never know when just something's not really gonna work. Just things that were unforeseen kind of pop up.
Okay, well, I pulled up the Hunchback 2CA because you mentioned the 2Cs. I'm assuming this is one of the ones that you were talking.
Well, actually, the Hunchback 2C was actually fine.
Oh,
I think that was like the one of the
course.
few. But it does still have that same idea. behind it, of course, and that like we have a little bit of old geometry mixed with new geometry.
I'm trying to think if I own any other 2C mechs here. Oh, I do. I own the Orion.
Okay.
Okay. I got the Orion up on stream right now. I wasn't sure where they were at in your portfolio, but so I went straight to the game here.
Yeah, that's fine. There are some mechs that either just it's not like I don't put them on my portfolio because I'm not happy with them or anything like that, but just I kind of choose what I put on there based on kind of like a small selection of the best.
Right. Well, yeah, it's your portfolio. You want to show off your absolute best stuff. So, so I was just looking at because you mentioned the 2Cs being a struggle again, or a struggle or difficult. Is there anything about the Orion that sticks out with something that, because you were talking about, old and the new, what is there any piece in particular on the Orion that I should be looking at right now?
Oh man, I wonder. I definitely recall that the Hunchback might have been probably the biggest struggle. The Hunchback 2C, but the Orion did have that same kind of like software struggle that I was going through, and I think particularly. Oh, go on ahead.
No, I was just because I was looking at the mech when you were explaining that, and so and when you said that, I just remembered that you were saying it was the software, old software, new software. So what
I can definitely go into it a little bit though.
Okay.
Because I guess the Orion is still a good example because I think it's been actually probably a year and a half since I worked on these, maybe even a little more than that. But regardless, it's almost, you can imagine that with that Orion there, it's almost as if part of the chest is on one texture sheet, whereas part of the chest is another. And while that's fine, like in terms of making those decisions, what it meant is that as I'm trying to draw a line across the chest, or maybe I'm trying to like add a detail that kind of goes across the geometry, the software would jump to the, like, as it's going on to the next piece of geometry, it would kind of lag for a second because it's going, hold on, now I have to calculate something completely different because I wasn't originally selecting that geometry.
Okay.
And it's,
yeah, so we're looking at the chest right now, and okay, so I got this thing painted in black and green, which was my inner unit's colors in the 228. Should the right side be black and the left side be just gunmetal? Was that intentional?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so.
Oh yeah.
So
that's like everything there. There's definitely, like, as far as I'm aware, the IIC mechs, they turned out really well. Then there's no bugs unless there's something like unseen that nobody has reported.
Okay, so even though you had the struggles with the softwares, the old and the new working together, you guys still clearly were able to work around those little issues and make sure that the mech we got was a beautiful mech, right? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So, 'cause I was just trying to see if I could see, because since you said that with the two different sides of the chest, I was trying to, but I think what I'm seeing is just my imagination now, and so.
Of course, it's one of those things where it's like it was a frustration, but it's a frustration that really can only be seen on the development side of things, because it's sort of like it just all of a sudden the process in which I create was just a little more difficult, and it's no fault of the development or how we proceeded with them, but just more so those little niche things that happen with software or whatnot that kind of just make you go, oh, this isn't really built for this one specific issue that is happening right now.
Okay. All right, well, let's switch the gears a little bit. Let's talk about you in the office.
Okay.
When you wake up and you do all your usual things that everybody does in the morning, you get to work, well, do you drive to work or do you commute?
I take the train.
Take the train, okay. When you get there, Who's the person that always seems to brighten up your day, that you're most happy to see when you get to work? Tell me it's Paul. Say it's Paul.
Oh god. As people would probably expect me to say, the answer is Tina. She gets in, like I get in fairly early. We have kind of like a really nice kind of leeway or a window of when you can arrive, and it just means, you know, you arrive earlier means you can leave earlier. But whenever Tina shows up, it's just everything's perfect, and it's funny too, because like she just vacation, but it's very quiet when she's not around. But when she is around, you can hear her across the ways, and it's perfect. It's great.
Okay, so if Tina gets frustrated or angry, does she start speaking French?
I don't think I've ever heard her do that.
Okay, so my mother-in-law is Brazilian, born and raised in Brazil, and when she gets mad, like if she got being the son-in-law, she was mad at me all the time. If she got mad at me, she would start cursing at me in Portuguese without even realizing. Her English would instantly switch to Portuguese, and I'd have no idea what she was saying. So I don't. I mean, from all the stuff we've seen at the PGI office, it looks like a really cool place to work.
I think so.
And it's got to be funny when Paul is putting coins in his 228 wallet that we sent him. That's got to be a fun moment. So
I've been meaning to see like how full of cash it is now, because it's gotta be quite heavy now.
And he's got to bring it to MechCon so that we can see, all his 228 guys can see. Speaking of which, are we going to see you at MechCon?
Ooh, hopefully.
Hopefully.
I don't see why not.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is it's exciting. Like I can't comment on anything that's unannounced, but I think you guys are really in for a treat. I think it'll be as good as current year and more.
Oh, you did just remind me, and I forgot to say this at the very beginning of the stream. This is my ADD kicking in there.
Yes.
She is going to be answering questions from. Well, I think are you going to answer a few questions from the Twitch audience?
Yeah, I know.
Okay. But she can't answer any questions about things that have not already been announced yet about MechWarrior 5, and because it's an ongoing case, she can't answer any questions about the lawsuit. And as we were joking earlier, it's not like she hangs out with the lawyers all the time anyways. She's an artist. So
yeah,
when we get to that portion, please don't ask questions about those things, that unless it's something that you know has already been announced and talked about as far as MechWarrior 5 is concerned.
Of course.
Speaking of MechWarrior 5, though, from what we have seen, and like in the preview video that we saw last year at MechCon, was that your texture work on those mechs, or is that like a different team doing the MechWarrior 5 stuff?
Not the mechs, but what was shown in the preview. I can say though that I did the texture for the Union dropship. Yeah, that's what it's called.
Okay. The Union drop. So you had to think about that for a second there.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things, and this is gonna sound really ridiculous, but anytime I write Union in my head, I say onion. So sometimes I have to make sure I don't say the onion dropship.
Well, funny you should mention that, because that's what all of us call the Orion, especially the 228.
Perfect.
We call it the onion, so that works.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna turn that off there. Okay. MechWarrior 5, MechWarrior Online. How much about the MechWarrior or BattleTech franchise were you aware of before you started working with PGI? Was this like a whole new universe to you when you joined them, or were you aware of it?
It was, honestly. Like I think I had known, I must have heard of MechWarrior at some point in my life, because the Atlas is a little familiar to me. Like at least the face, it's fairly iconic. So I had recognized that as something that I have seen in the past, but I can't really place where. But yeah, like coming into it, I didn't really know a lot about BattleTech or MechWarrior. Farther back, like Robotech, across and whatnot. But by working here, it has been kind of cool to like to kind of pour myself into this universe. At least like kind of like okay, this is the license. Like cool, let's figure out all I can about it. Like I think I was a little quiet about it when I first started, but like I kind of drew myself as like a pseudo mech pilot and whatnot, and
Huh.
I've had fun kind of being like, okay, like
Is that
wait, figuring out what this is.
Okay, so repeat that a little bit. Did you say you drew yourself as a? Is there artwork of you as a mech pilot?
Oh, nothing. It wasn't good. I might have like gotten rid of it if it's like if floating on the internet somewhere. There was two, but maybe I'll make another one, but it'll be a better one.
Okay.
But yeah, like I was playing around with like, that yeah.
All right.
I'd probably want to redesign it too, but.
Okay, so since learning about the Mech Warrior BattleTech universe, how much? I mean, what does your education in this gaming franchise revolve around? Is it just have you been reading Sarna? Have you checked out any of the novels? What's the deepest into our nerd world that you've gone?
Huh. I've always been meaning to check out the novel, and if anyone has a recommendation on where to start, I'd love
start
to.
at book 1, Decision at Thunder Rift.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder.
definitely
It's
start
possible that we have the book at Piranha Games, because we do have like kind of a library that I think features some of the books, but then we also have some like just generic like software how-to books and then like art books and whatnot. Or Alex has it on his like mech shelf and art book kind of thing that's situated beside his desk.
Well, does he let you guys read them? If you went and asked Alex
so.
if you could borrow a book, would he let you read it? Because I know some people.
He probably would.
I know some people like take Darren for example. I'm sure if we walked into Darren's office and were able to get the full tour of his office, he'd have all of his books up on a shelf somewhere. And if you asked him if you could read Decision at Thunder Rift from his own personal collection, he'd probably say no, because it was probably the copy of that book that he's had since he was 10 years old or something. He doesn't want anybody to mess it up. So I can imagine with Alex, it's kind of the same thing, because he's clearly a BattleTech fan that goes back for a little ways, unless I'm mistaken. But I've always thought of him as such.
Alex is really cool though, so I wonder. That's a good point though. I didn't factor in the nostalgia element to it though, because like I've got art books like that where I'm like, no, nobody's touching this.
Don't touch that.
Yeah.
I had, and I know this is not something that people, some BattleTech fans would not be proud of, but I actually have a copy. It's the only thing I have. I used to have a bunch of books originally, and some other memorabilia, but my dog got into my collection at one point, and the only thing that survived. See if you can see that, and so you're seeing a different camera, and then I'll show that to the stream. This Mech Assault 2, the original Xbox one, and then you can see a corner where my dog started to chew up this. Can you see that? Okay. I have different cameras. I'm using one camera for you and another one for the stream, so I'm kind of going back and forth. I feel like the night show host who's not sure which camera he's supposed to be looking at the time. But yeah, I had.
You have quite the impressive setup. I didn't actually realize it was. Although it makes sense now.
Oh, are you seeing it on my Twitch page there?
Well, I've seen the 6 monitor.
Yeah, 6 monitors.
Thing, yeah.
It's an interesting setup. But I really like it. I'm getting Starwolf to go this direction. You know who Starwolf is? Another MWO streamer.
That's a really familiar name.
Yeah, he streams late at night. Darren's always joining him on streams, but I'm getting him. I just linked him the monitor stand I use. He's starting to expand his collection. I think once he gets up to 4 monitors, he's just going to want to keep going like I did until he has this NASA flight control center of a system in front of him.
Oh man, I don't know if this is anything off topic, but you must have because my graphics card can only have 2 monitors, which sucks because I have a third one in my closet that's just sitting there. You must have 2 graphics cards then?
I do.
Right?
I've got a GTX. My graphics cards are kind of old now. They're getting a little dated. I got to be updating these things soon. But my main GPU is a NVIDIA GTX 770. It's got 4 video outputs on it, or
Nice.
3. Each one of my graphics cards is outputting the 3 monitors. Oh yeah, I'm using the 2 DVIs and HDMI out of the 770, and then I'm using a VGA. No, I'm not. I'm using 2 DVIs and HDMI out of the 760. So each card is outputting the three monitors. They run kind of independent of each other though. So the 770 has my main gaming monitor and 2 of my side ones, and then the 760 is just my other 3 up top. And the only reason why I even did that was for streaming, so I could have, like right now, I have everything up that I need to see. I've got my questions for you, and another tab right there. I've got your original response. I got your videos can appear. I got the game, OBS, chat, stream labels, volume controls, Winamp, OBS, and Hangouts. It's all
Nice.
yeah, and I can see everything.
Nice.
But
and I know that feeling too. Even streaming with 3 monitors, it still feels like a little tiny strips of everything because there's so much that I need, but
yeah,
it feels like so much space.
Okay, so when you guys are streaming at PGI, like I haven't seen a dev stream for a while now, but I used to see you and Mark and some others. I used to see Tina get up and do some gaming. When you guys are streaming, are you at your own personal PC not personal, but your own workstation, or do they have a special one set up?
Nope. We're at our own workstations.
Okay,
That's why kind of whenever any different person is streaming, it's like a different perspective of the office.
Okay. So the IT guys need to come set all that up and make sure it's all working for you before you do it, or are you pretty skilled with OBS?
We're pretty skilled ourselves. Like a lot of people in the studio kind of know how to set that up too. I think I can't remember if I helped Jason, the cockpit artist, set up or someone else, but just kind of being like, oh, here's all the even Tina had it too. It's like, here's the list of the extensions here, download this, whatnot. And we help each other out with that. And our computers, as expected, are pretty they're pretty tanky, so they can definitely deal with all that. So there was never a worry on our end in terms of the hardware of streaming.
Yeah, that's actually something I do worry about, because while I may have this big fancy monitor set up where I really truly can see everything Spectral Fire, I don't ignore you. But
yeah.
But while I have this big fancy setup, the actual hardware inside my PC, like I said, my GPUs are kind of old. I'm only have an i5 CPU, so I get what I can afford, and my monitors were all actually free, so I didn't have to pay for these individually, so that kind of helps. Well, let's move on about you.
Okay.
Let's see, what didn't I cover yet? Oh, BattleTech. HBS, Harebrained Schemes, they put out their BattleTech game. Since you are a texture artist with PGI, and since they've licensed work from PGI, when we're playing BattleTech, are we looking at mechs that you did?
We're looking at mechs that I did, but I can't say I know for certain if they did use our textures at all. I know that because unfortunately, or just the nature of the difference in our games, is because BattleTech is a top-down, and the mechs are dwarfs by comparison to MechWarrior. No doubt the resolution is going to be vastly lower, and I think with what I've played of the demo, I can't quite comment on it, but I can give a vague kind of indication to what I've seen. But it does seem as though they're using their own textures, and that's completely fair, given they wouldn't be able to use the resolution that we use.
Right.
And so I think probably with the compression, it's just it probably wouldn't even work at that size.
Okay. Well, because I know that was one of the things I asked Mark, and he seemed actually slightly sad, because BattleTech takes place in the year, a couple years before the clan invasion, which was about, I think, when Mark started working for PGI. So he has gone back and redesigned the assassin, I guess. I guess he modeled the assassin. So if they in a future update to the BattleTech game, if they put the assassin in, then he could actually see one of his 3D models in the BattleTech game. So, but yeah, I see what I see what you're saying there, though. With the lower scale, etc. So,
Mhm.
aside from the artwork that you do at PGI, your regular work, what do you like best about being at PGI? What is the best thing about working for Russ and the crew over there in Vancouver?
Hmm. There's definitely a lot that I really appreciate working here. You always hear about kind of horror stories a little bit in the game industry, really long hours or crunch times and overtime and whatnot. But Piranha does a really a good job of kind of keeping that like work-life balance in check, so that we're not falling into the sort of unfortunate standard where, like we're going into crazy overtime and whatnot. Aside from that, it's really nice, and you can kind of see it particularly with like the heroes recently that I did for an example, is that like we have our universe, we have our art direction, and we have kind of like our like rule sets and kind of guidance when it comes to how we design the mechs and whatnot. But we definitely are given as individual artists kind of like the freedom to kind of build on things or take things as not necessarily our own, but we're able to kind of put like a lot more of our vision into it if we so choose to, which I've always really appreciated. That kind of like, it's as if we're kind of given that confidence, like we were hired for a reason, so they give us that ability to kind of take things into our own and whatnot.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. You want to take a quick 5-minute break?
Sure.
Do a restroom break and whatever, and because I know I need to. And then when we get back, we can do a giveaway, and then if you want, you can answer a couple questions from the audience.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Let's do that. I'm going to. I should have properly prepped this portion here. Pause that. Turn that off. Okay, I'm gonna make that big. All right, kids, we're gonna take a break. That is Duncan Fisher in place of Lauren right now on the screen, because we're gonna listen to the Duncan Fisher Minute here for a couple minutes, and we'll be back in about 5 minutes, everybody. So, hang on. We'll see you in a minute.
Hello, Mech fans. Duncan Fisher here. You know, it's not easy being the voice of Solaris. The crowds, the mech jocks, the girls, the less than savory characters. And in the middle of it all is Duncan Fisher, voice of the common man, bringing you all of the mech action I can shove through these two eyeballs. People ask me, Duncan, what's your secret? Well, folks, I suppose it's time to come clean. I don't do this because it's my job. I do it for you. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Duncan Fisher is a man of the people, and my people want bloody, violent, mech-on-mech action 24/7. When I get up in the morning, with last night's hangover pounding away at my head, and pull on my pants, I do it because decency demands that I not walk to breakfast naked. Once again, I do it for you. And after a breakfast scotch or two, this announcer's voice of mine is ready to give you what you need. So what's my secret? Chronic alcoholism, by the sound of it. But that's how the business rolls on Solaris. So kids, next time you get to thinking that you want to be an announcer on Solaris 7, remember your old pal Duncan Fisher, and send me a bottle or two. It might just get your foot in the door. This has been the Duncan Fisher Minute.
Zwerf! No, Zwerf, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah. We're friends.
We're friends. Let's go. Come on, follow me. I will shoot something. Come on.
Oh.
You see? Where's my team?
Oh.
They're gonna shoot you.
No.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Let's be honest.
wait.
This is way too easy.
Shots fired!
We got faster, didn't we?
Oh,
Oh, there it is. We're flying.
Oh my god, no! No!
What? Oh my
Get
goodness.
Zoe. Get Zoe.
We are totally flying.
oh.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, where am I going?
Flying across
I'm
the
going in
map.
enemy territory, Paul.
Somebody help.
Paul, I'm going to like the end of the world.
This is messed up. This is really messed up.
Beyond.
There's a flying dire wolf right over there. Oh! Let's go!
You made me.
Oh,
You have one.
rip.
Oh my god, he's in the tree. He's in the tree.
Which
he must
tree?
be in the tree. I don't know. He's up there. He's in the tree.
He's
No,
like the
I don't know.
predator.
I'm scared. He's like a tiger. Pounce.
I see you.
Oh my
Beef,
goodness.
are you hiding?
Yes, I am.
He's really shut down somewhere.
In a tree.
Is he in a tree?
Hello.
Hi,
someone.
Get him!
Hello?
Get beef!
No, you won't.
I am a carnivore.
You got this, beef.
And you are
What? Oh shit! Yeah!
Oh,
Oh!
Oh,
Oh!
I'm gonna die any second now.
Come on!
Oh!
oh, look at that. Look at that slow-mo.
Hello.
Maybe don't poke on that side.
Uh-oh.
Oh shit! Goodbye.
Hey, come back here, beef.
No.
Oh no!
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
Turn around and shoot him.
Oh shit!
Really?
No! This is not fair!
That's not fair.
Here we go, here we go.
Ah! Oh my god! No! I'm not dead, okay.
You got it, beef.
Are you still alive?
Override.
Oh!
Oh no.
No more speed, let's go.
Oh,
Oh!
oh it's slowing.
Yes! I got this, I got this.
Uh-oh.
Nope!
No!
Prepare to die!
Yeah, that looks so damn bad in slow-mo.
Don't twist away from me. Face me!
Don't twist
Face the
away.
storm.
Only Souf kills Souf beef.
I'm not
you know
about
that.
that.
Hello again, Mech fans. Duncan Fisher here. People tell me, Duncan, you're the only announcer I care to hear. Nobody brings me into the mech action like you do. Why, I even read about mech matches with your voice in my head. Well, that's flattering to hear. It takes years, decades to cultivate a fan base like mine. You know, back when I was a mech jock, people loved me when I won and hated me when I didn't. During that time, I learned an important life lesson that I want to share with you, my loyal fans. Life is all about winning. If you're not winning, you're not anybody. Once I figured that out, I knew what I had to do. No, not sabotage my opponent's mechs, though that wouldn't have been a bad idea. No, my path to glory was one of a greater calling. I set out to become the voice of Solaris 7. And today, despite all the scandals and investigations into my questionable ethical behavior, I'm at the top. No matter which mech jock wins the match, Duncan Fisher is always in the winner's circle. So there you have it, folks. Win above all else, and nobody cares how you played the game. This has been the Duncan Fisher Minute.
The Duncan Fisher Minute is written by David Martin. Produced and performed by George Ledoux and Voices in My Head Productions. Based on characters created by Ferret Baudouin and George Ledoux. Any similarity to persons living or dead is ridiculous.
Here's the... Supply. If...
They can't hear me. I forgot I muted this OBS too. They couldn't hear me. Anyways,
Oh wow.
we are back. And one of the videos that we were watching during the break there is actually very interesting because it was one of the very first times I ever met Lauren. It was during one of my mechathons. I was doing, it was either a mechathon for the Breast Cancer Research Foundation or the Movember Foundation. I can't remember, but it was in the fall of 2015. Yeah, it was 2015. And that was that one. I'm not sure if you saw it when it was playing there, Lauren. When you, Tina, Paul, Zoof, I think Darren was there, Beef, me, and Paul was, I think, still in the studio, and he was messing with the controls on us, making us fly up in the air and slowing us down.
Boops.
Yeah, do you remember that?
I do. That was probably one of the first times he was probably doing that, I think, or it was still fairly new at that point.
I think it's one of the only times I've seen him do it too. So
Okay.
I haven't seen him do it since. Maybe I've just missed it, but yeah, I haven't seen it done since. But that actually, that what was funny though. And it was the reason. Well, there was multiple reasons why I wanted to do this interview with Lauren tonight. First, she seemed very well. I'm talking to you like you're in the third person or something here, but you seemed very interesting at the time, very friendly. As did Tina, and the PGI devs have always seemed very friendly and outgoing to me ever since I started playing this game, at least. And of course, I did that interview with Mark 2 weeks ago, so it seemed perfect to bring the texture artist into the or bring you a texture artist to do an interview after Mark. But back then, when I was doing that mechathon and that stream happened, that started, I don't know if you remember this, but it started a little thing, because there was one time you were watching a stream when somebody was streaming, and we were doing drops, maybe I was streaming, and we were trying to get you to come play with us, and you were at work, so I started tweeting Russ. I'm like, Russ, can Lauren come out to play? We really want her to come play with us. Which he never responded to any of that, unfortunately.
No. I do remember that though.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I'm remembering the mechathon because that was one of the instances where we got the beef on our stream as well.
Yeah, I had invited him to. I had just joined the 228 at the time. He was a member of the 228 at the time, and I asked him if he'd like to be my special guest for the mechathon. And it just so happened I brought him on when you guys were doing the PGI dev stream. And so 1 minute he and I are just doing drops together, and next thing I knew, Zoop was dragging us up into the PGI room on the NGTS, and we're like, oh, what the hell? What are we doing here? And you and Tina and Paul and everybody were like, aha, we've got you. And
you're on our stream now.
Yeah, right. And then what ensued was just absolute hilarity. But
yeah.
Good times.
Yeah, I noticed too when I was watching the video. I was like, "Oh, that's my Stormcrow." I was like,
and that was,
"Oh yeah, that's my Stormcrow."
and that was your voice we heard too. So
yeah.
Good times. So how much do you play the game when you're? I mean, when you go home who was it? Someone asked a minute ago, what's your idea of a perfect Sunday? Does your perfect Sunday involve playing MechWarrior Online at all?
Not quite.
No.
I did used to play quite a lot. Like I'm trying to think. Yeah, like there was at least these past months, I just haven't quite had the time. Aside from kind of like if Tina's obviously doing one of dev drops, I try to get in on it. I think there was a period too where she was doing a lot of dev drops, but I just had like my nose to the grinder. Like I had to finish whatever it was that I was working on, unfortunately. But yeah, no, like I really like to play the game. I don't know if I'm a little bit biased though, because on our dev accounts we kind of have everything unlocked.
Right.
So it definitely makes the exploration just at the click of a button, particularly for camos, it's really nice. I mean, obviously it's like, oh, I did this, so I want to throw my camos on there.
Well, Mark was saying that he has his dev account. He was saying he doesn't get new mechs into his account unless he asks for them, and then they get injected into the account.
There are ways to get it set up so that it it happens automatically. So I don't. He might just need to maybe talk to the right person.
Okay. Well, Mark left the stream too, so we can't tell him that.
Mark left,
I'll-
but we can say he's wrong.
Yeah, he's wrong. Because because I'm a streamer of the game, I've been a long time streamer. I don't get all of the mechs, but I do get quite a lot of them given to me so I can display them on stream.
Of course.
Do you by any chance know exactly how many mechs there are in the game?
Oh, see, it's funny because every month we kind of have like a kind of an event at the last Friday of the month where we all kind of get together, and sometimes what people have done during these just like casual kind of like, I don't know, they're like a mental break kind of partway through the day, but sometimes we might have, Mark has hosted a couple BattleTech games, but one thing that has happened though is every other month we do trivia hosted by David Bradley, who did choose that as a question once. I think he had asked how many variants were in the game, and my god, there's a lot of variants.
Well, yeah, I'm hearing forced induction on Twitch right now is saying 400 plus.
Oh, I think we're past 500. I think.
Really? Because I personally have 333 mechs, and
oh, wow.
For many people that's considered quite a lot. As I see other streamers all the time who have 10, 20, maybe 50. Some have 100, and then they see my mech collection. They're just like, wow, that's a lot of mechs. You expect that out of Sean or Phil or whoever. Phil and Sean, same person. Darren's what I mean there. Yeah, but yeah, 333 is a lot. But yeah, 400 plus, 500 plus is what you're saying. So that's a lot of mechs. There's still so many I need to get to. I've been playing the game personally since closed beta. But
oh, nice.
Yeah, this account my main account that I use, I didn't create this one until 2013, so this one's actually about a year behind. But
okay.
I have 3 accounts. I probably shouldn't,
nice.
But I do. All right, so what do you got? What do you say we do a giveaway and then we start answering some questions from the viewers? Does that sound good to you?
That sounds perfect.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, let's go over the list. You tell me what we should give away. I've got premium time in 24-hour increments. I have 1,000 MC codes. I have a MechCon 2017 decal, and I've got some mech bays.
Ooh, I say it should be the MC so that people can use them on patterns.
Yeah. Oh,
that
yeah.
I painted.
Good idea. Okay, so let me get the giveaway tool up and running, and then let's see here. We're going to,
unless that's the too expensive way though.
No,
I don't want to exhaust you of your MC.
No. This is another thing that Darren tends to ship me, once a month or so, to give away on stream. So it's no big deal. I got a few of these codes too. So. Okay. So, Lauren, we need a code word. Hashtag something that they need to say in Twitch chat. And no, don't anybody in Twitch chat just start typing as soon as she says it, because I have to enter it into the program.
Yeah. I kind of want to just do Lauren is awesome.
Done. Lauren is awesome.
Hashtag powder has gone straight to my head.
Hashtag Lauren is awesome right now in Twitch chat, no spaces, for your chance to win 1,000 MC.
Perfect.
Yep. Okay. So Lauren is better than Mark. What? Mark built Stargates. Neener. Sorry.
Contest.
Well, what did you do before PGI?
So before Piranha Games, I worked freelance actually, and that was really fascinating because it's being in studio and doing freelance are just so widely different from each other, and both have their positives and both have their negatives, which are almost like counterbalances to one another, I would say. But regardless, as a freelance 3D artist, I definitely had more of a kind of a variety. Like what a lot of people say in the industry is that like you wear a lot of hats. So the idea is that there were some projects I had where someone, can you animate? And I'm like, well, technically yes. They're like, well, you're animating, and I'm like, I guess I'm animating. Or one thing that was fascinating, it was I did work for a casino game, like a horse racing game, and I can't get into too much of the details there just because I'm not sure how the NDA applies now, but they were like, oh, here, animate a horse. And if any of you know in animation, the horse is probably the hardest thing to animate. But I was like, all right, sure, and just like poured over documentation on quadruped animations and whatnot. And there were some things too where I had clients who asked for like 3D printed, like assets fit for 3D print, which was really fun to kind of do. Yeah.
Okay, going back to the quadruped animation. You know, because people have been asking for quad leg mechs in the game for a long time. Is that quad legged? Yeah, okay.
Quad mech.
English I know speak good. Okay. But is that one of the main issues behind that? Is just the how hard it is to animate?
Oh yeah. It's very complicated, especially too. I think like, I mean, I'm not like as trained as an animator as anyone who is like an in-studio animator or even the programming involved in it. But I just know that with my work on it, like on my own stuff, it's hard. Holy crap! And it's just there's so many pieces that go into it, and of course if it's organic, that throws more like complications into things.
Okay, well, I was thinking about, and I've already asked him if he'd be up for it sometime, but I've already asked Chris Lowry if he'd be interested in doing an interview. But if we stay on this art side, going from Mark to you, then Mark makes the model, you texture it, then it has to go to an animator? Does it go to an animator next?
No, it actually, the animation probably happened at the same time that Mark and I are both doing our jobs. I'm not sure how long it takes, because it's possible it might be done no doubt it has to be done after Mark. Yeah.
Yeah, because
so I guess at some point
during they can animate it.
Of course, yeah. So at some point when Mark is done, while I'm working on it, the animation is occurring at the same time.
Okay. Is there a particular, how many animators are there within the company?
Oh, it's interesting. I don't know if I can necessarily comment on it. It's not necessarily like a bad thing, but because it's not quite my forte, I'll just say like, I'm not gonna get into it, I guess.
Okay. So, I'm thinking here, and you go ahead and feel free to give me your opinion. But I'm thinking I put off I really want to interview Chris Lowry because you know he's the balance guy. But maybe if we kind of keep things going on this trend though, maybe I should contact Tina and see if there's an animator that might want to do an interview.
Yeah, maybe.
Because
that might be a possibility.
Yeah, go from 3D modeling to texturing to animation and kind of go through the whole art side of it before getting into Chris, because balancing is something that it's one of those topics that a lot of people have a problem with, and but the art is one of those topics that everybody seems to love. So maybe if we kind of kept it going in that regard.
Yeah. Well, I know like obviously it's dependent on the individual, because like, and it's the same thing with like streaming at our work, right? Like everyone's open to stream, and we do want like as many people to do so. But if someone isn't comfortable, then you know that's completely their volition. I can't.
I'd go to Tina and ask her if there's any animators that might want to be interviewed, and just leave it up to them. I wouldn't want to. Certainly don't want to make any of you uncomfortable. So.
Yeah. Now, obviously, I don't know how Alex feels on this, but I think if you manage to get Alex, that'd be really cool.
Yeah. Is that what Alex does? Is he an animator, or is he?
No. Well, Alex is the concept artist, and I know that.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. I don't know why. Yeah, I knew that. I've never actually talked to Alex, but I did know that. Yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea. And he's been on stream a few times before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't he streamed
Yeah,
for
I
PGI?
think he's done one stream for PGI, and then other than that, like if he's been a part of interviews or just engaging with the fan base, I know he does that quite a bit.
Okay. Yeah, I'll contact Tina about that. Well, kids, I'll tell you what. We're gonna do the giveaway, and while we're getting ready to do the giveaway here, this is for 1,000 MC. Get your questions for Lauren ready. Understanding again, though, that she's not going to answer any questions about the lawsuit, and she's not going to answer any questions about MechWarrior 5, about anything that has not been disclosed yet already. So, chances are, if you don't know it, if you're that big of a fan and you don't know it about MechWarrior 5, it's because PGI hasn't told us yet. And if they haven't told us yet, Lauren can't answer questions about it. So, let's go to the giveaway screen. And your odds of winning right now are really, really good. Only 13 people, 14 people have entered. So one of these 14 people is going to win 1,000 MC. I'm gonna give you guys. I'm gonna give you guys about 10 more seconds to enter the drawing, and then we're just gonna get it done.
That's a really cool dashboard.
For the giveaway?
Yeah.
This is Lax Tools, LACHHH Tools.
Okay.
Just do a search for him on Google,
Mm-hmm.
and got.
I wonder if Tina might want to look into that, because I think we have some kind of extension, but I think she might appreciate the sort of UI that this one gives.
Oh, and the animations too. This is the one that Bandit uses too when he does giveaways on stream. Ever seen one of Bandit streams?
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're doing it. Oh, they're starting to send you questions too. So keep your eyes out.
Oh, okay, perfect. It looks like this, but I'm
Whoa.
text.
There was a fly in my drink. It scared me. Not sure where the fly came from. Okay, well, we have a winner. Emperor Tunafish, one of my favorite followers for obvious reasons. Emperor Tunafish, I'm going to send that to you in a Twitch whisper. And we'll do that right now before my ADD makes me forget. Congratulations, Emperor Tunafish. Oh, come back here. Tunafish. You whisper. All right. You have your code. Congratulations, sir. All right, Lauren. It's all you now. Any questions there you saw that you would like to?
Yeah, there's a couple of them that are. Let's see. Oh, how's my fencing going? Pretty good.
Fencing?
Yeah, I fence.
Really?
As does Caleb in comments. Yeah, rapier in particular.
I don't even know what that is. But I just fence is just one of those things you see like in a movie here or there, or on ESPN 8, the Ocho, you know.
Oh, and I got Mark into it too, so he studies longsword right now.
Really? He didn't mention this to me either. I feel so left out.
It's going good though. I've actually moved to private lessons just to kind of at least trying to get a little bit of to take the efficiency of the classroom setting, I guess, to just kind of work on it. But yeah, I'll move on to another question.
No, that's actually a very interesting topic. How long have you been doing that?
Okay. I've been doing it for, I guess, 1 year and 3/4 now. There were some periods where I kind of about it though. I think I'm really good, personally.
Okay. So, if you happen to, like everybody does this all the time, if you're walking home from work, it's late at night, you got a sword on you, you're not the person to mess with.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What else you got?
Perfect.
Here.
Okay. I did get a question from Waza Enor. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but
We call him Watts.
what's your favorite? Okay. What's your favorite mech and why? From a gameplay perspective, and this might be a little bit biased because it was the first mechs that I played, but I do really like the Stormcrow. And I've run with that one for a while, both the Stormcrow and the Shadowcat. So naturally when they were like, oh, we're gonna make a hero for like Clan Wave 2 and 3 and whatnot, or 1, 2, and 3, I immediately scooped up both of those, hands down. Like I did quite a number, but I made sure I was like, those are my heroes. And so like, yeah, it was a pleasure to speaking on which, like, to develop the hero patterns for those mechs, just because I adored them so much. Artistically speaking, I'm trying to think which ones I had a lot of fun doing. I really like when I get a mech that has very unique geometry, so that like the Viper or the Crab that have those very long kind of bodied mechs.
I own Vipers. Let's look at Medusa.
Perfect. Is the Medusa the yellow? Or is that the other one?
Well, I repaint all my mechs.
Okay.
The legs a little bit better here.
Oh, yeah, that's it. That one was not complicated, but it took quite a bit of time just to kind of, because that's actually one important detail. Like, I know one of the questions we were possibly going to cover was kind of like, what's the hardest part of my job, and I would probably say that taking Alex's hero and package concepts is probably the most difficult. Like, it's something only because I have to translate what is his 2D concept to 3D. And I need to make sure, or at least I always put in as much effort as I can to 100%, as he's drawn it, put it on the mech. And whether that means I have to fiddle with it or I have to draw it perfectly, like I never try to kind of like skimp there. And so it's you know, like I adore doing it every time I do it, but it's definitely, I would argue, probably the hardest part of the job, I guess. And maybe it's because it's always changing too, but I always enjoy it.
Okay, so before I get into this next question for you that I had about that, I should warn everybody, you and the viewers. Most of my regular viewers know I live in Kansas City. In Kansas City, we get some hellacious thunderstorms, and we had some hellacious ones earlier today. And my apartment tends to lose power if the storms get too crazy. So if all of a sudden you just lose me, stream goes out, that's why, because I would have just lost power. So, all right, so back to this. All right, Alex makes the 2D drawing.
Mm-hmm.
Does Alex have to get it approved by anybody before it goes to Mark and you, or is that is what he draws gold and that's the way it's going to be?
I'm sure there's a little bit of like an approval process. Like, of course we are given a lot of trust in the work that we do, but I do know that I see Alex and Dennis, who is the art director, kind of having sometimes like a back and forth about ideas or designs, or like maybe try ways we can kind of accentuate certain parts of the mech.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. Well, who's your next question from?
Okay. I wanted to pick Q-Pan's question because I really like that.
Yeah, we really like Q-Pan too. He creates some really funny GIFs for all the streamers. Perfect. Yeah, he's very popular in the streamer community.
Okay. And he asked, Lauren, what was the Shadowcat pattern?
Sorry,
and
say
I really
say
like
that again.
one.
You kind of cut out a little bit there.
Sure. So it's, what was the inspiration on the Shadowcat pattern? And so the Shadowcat is, the hero is called the Mishi Peshu. I might be saying it wrong. And what that is I can't remember from what culture it comes from, but essentially it kind of translates to, I believe, like an underwater panther.
Interesting.
Which very appropriate for the Shadowcat. But the idea that I went with it is that I tried to the blocks of, I guess, what would I call that? Like a white, bluish purple sort of specks are kind of supposed to be like a very scaled pattern.
Yeah, I'm pointing at them right now on stream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, I looked at it as scales.
Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the idea that I had there. I think it's interesting. It has been quite a while that I did it. I'm just gonna Google something because anytime that I'm given a hero, whether it's say a name or the name of a mech or a hero that's actually within the lore, I'll always turn to Google, and whether or not it's like just a Google search of say that the Mishi Peshu, or it's going on to Sarna and looking at whatever information is available there, I always try to draw from as many sources as I can. I'm trying to think if there was a reason why I had picked purple, and I don't know if it's. I think what that might have come from is possibly that if it's underwater panther, I was kind of taking the black sort of fur pattern and kind of like building upon it, or kind of making it more unique.
I'm gonna pull mine up in the mech lab here, and I'm looking at the camo spec. I can't remember if I changed. No, I didn't change any of the colors on this. So as it is on stream is the original colors. So that's all you.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think too, I believe with the sort of red specularity, I have like a water effect, but just kind of playing more with kind of like material work and how I really like the idea with this guy especially that it never really looks the same in any lighting, or at least it never really looks the same depending on which you're looking at it.
Okay, so my dad, he's really into custom cars. He's got an original Hummer H1, one of the big stomping SUV vehicles, and he's customized the crap out of this thing. Chrome everything, custom paint job, and he's got these really subtle flames that go down the side of it. But depending on which angle you're looking at it, will determine the color of the flames, and that's kind of the impression that I get from, because when I turn your mech a little bit, the red kind of disappears on the legs. Like I'm looking at the legs right here, but as I move it back, the red pops a little bit more, and then I kind of get that same feeling from it. So good work.
Thanks. Yeah, I was really happy with this one. And that's one of those things, like, I know it's much more agonizing for Mark, but I know when I finished this one, I was like, alright, so when can I put in my portfolio? Oh, gotta wait,
Right.
And that's natural, of course, but like, God, I can't imagine how Mark feels because he has to wait so much longer than I do.
Well, I know you wanted to keep this interview. Well, we kind of both wanted to try to keep it within an hour and a half. We're already at an hour and 44 minutes, so I'll leave this up to you. You can answer. It's totally up to you. You can answer a bunch more questions if you want. All I want to do what you're comfortable with. So.
I don't mind going till I'm PSD, but I don't mind going till 8 o'clock. So another 25 minutes.
Okay. All right then. Which question did you notice next that you would like? And don't forget, people, if viewers, if you have a particular question for Lauren that you would like her to answer, post it in the Twitch chat, and make it easier for her to see. In all caps, type question in front of it, so that way she can pull it out easier. And then,
or if you @ Lauren Bamlett.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, tag her in it. So, did you have another one that you saw that you wanted to look at?
Oh yeah, there's one from Major Donkey. He asks, kind of more along the lines if the anime obscures stuff that I've done. Not necessarily that, but what I wanted to take his question and kind of answer it in a different way. But interestingly enough, like as I'm painting things, on the mech, sometimes there can be like a moment of like, oh no, oh damn it, when weapon boxes, maybe particularly if it's like a chest kind of piece. Sometimes I might paint something or something on the shoulder, and it could be this elaborate design or this sort of like a stamp, depending on the pattern. And then I go through my variant list and I realize that, oh, there's a box that goes right halfway through the design or whatnot. And that's it's something that kind of is another factor of my job, is that I kind of have to keep those things in mind, both in that I want the art to be properly represented, like no matter what customization you do to the mechs, that like no matter what you add onto it, it'll still be an interesting mech, but also kind of playing around with this different geometry, or going, well, you know, I just unfortunately can't add that here, or maybe I have to make it smaller. But that's the only case I'd say with my job where I have to kind of consider like, oh, I can't really do that because of this, or I have to think around the box because of that. The animations, I wouldn't say get in the way of anything, because you know, you got your standard walk cycle. Generally, I don't think I've noticed anything of mine kind of like disappearing because of it. But yeah,
That's definitely, I guess good news there. I can imagine that could be a problem in several different video games, but sometimes I could also see it being a problem just with the way the mech moves, and you know, like, cause, for example, when this mech is moving with the Shadow Cat, you can't always necessarily see the stuff that the arms are covering up right there. So I could see that happening probably in other areas of the mech, just in the general animation. So, but yeah, that was a good question. I like that. Did we get any more here, or?
there's quite a bit of them. I'm just kind of slowly scrolling. Yeah, well, there's. Oh, I see. Caleb is actually answering a question of the fencing part. Let's see. There are some questions like it's like I can answer it, but at the same time it's not within my interest to answer, because if there's any kind of like because I see there's some questions where like, you know, what mech do I want to add in the game, or what gameplay feature do I want to add to the game, but unfortunately by kind of commenting on it, there's two ways that it can be essentially taken, in that either it's happening, confirmed, you know, hashtag confirmed, or sort of that idea that like, oh, you know, I want that too, it's not in, or, you know, they're not listening to this thing. Which is fine. Like, feel free, of course, I don't want to dissuade anyone from asking any questions, because I'm pretty fine about, like, you know, just kind of stating like, can't do it, NDA, that kind of thing.
Well, we did get a new one here from Flippin' Griff. He was asking you any mech schemes you would want to redo.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, are there any that you did maybe when you first started working for him, or even recently, and you just thought maybe, or you came up with a different idea for it, and you think it would possibly look better with something else? Or isn't that the point of actually reskinning mechs with the camos, going back? I don't know. You answer it. I'm just trying to elaborate on the question a little bit more there.
Oh yeah, not so much like things I'd want to go back on, because the thing that's kind of fascinating about a game that has kind of active and yeah, like active releases every month, is that once something's in the game, it is actually fairly difficult to kind of change it, in terms of like how we're kind of interacting with the community, because once it's in the game, very quickly, depending on, no matter what your opinion is, kind of like love it or hate it, ultimately what at least we kind of see is that maybe I put something in the game and half the people love it, half the people don't love it. If I go ahead and I change it, maybe half of the people who say that they didn't like it, they're like, oh cool, great, but then the people who did love it, they'll be like, oh, why'd you change it? I loved it. Because ultimately art is fairly subjective. So that's something that we do try and keep in mind when we are developing, particularly the patterns, because although revisions occur, things are kind of like reported that then they're fair. Like, do take them into account. To change these things. We always do have to kind of consider that kind of balancing game of, is it worth it, given not necessarily a response, but kind of knowing that we are changing something that someone has purchased, and they're kind of sitting there with it, and they're whether or not they're on either side, they have formed an opinion on that.
Oh yeah,
but
so
it's kind of
if I go back, I look at one of the mechs I originally purchased. Like, I look at the very first hero I ever purchased was the Cataprat Iliad. I purchased this thing back right almost when it first came out. It was the first mech I actually purchased for this game.
okay.
I have it set up a certain way. I think it looks good a certain way, whatever. Or maybe it doesn't look good or great, but I'm used to it being a certain way. If you went back and reskinned this, changed the texturing of it in any way, I think that would probably, I think I'd be a little peeved at that, because I consider this mech to look, it should look a certain way, and if it doesn't, then it seems weird. I don't know if I'd be peeved, but I don't know that I'd be very thrilled about it either.
Of course.
I kind of see what you're saying there.
And that's kind of one of the things that I like. Like, I would have never considered this once I first started at Piranha Games, but through the development, it's like, oh, it's kind of like a fascinating part of developing a game that is like has active releases, as opposed to, and I guess sort of what I was a little familiar with now, Contract, where it's definitely different, but whether or not my stuff did get released, it's kind of like, it's out there, and then that's kind of it. There's not like this kind of active engagement with the community and whatnot.
Your music is a little loud. I'm gonna turn that down a little bit.
Okay. I do like Juode Varnus' question.
When did he ask?
Just like right at the bottom. What are your thoughts on people slapping giant googly eyes deckles on the mech?
Let's take a look at one of those.
Yeah.
So, I have a famous one now. I call it my girlfriend. Let's see. It's a Hellbringer. Did you see this picture?
I might have. I see so many.
There's mine right there. Big goofy eye and big luscious lips. It's my new girlfriend.
Perfect.
Oh, I just can't really see it in my...
Everybody loves lips with the eyes. Yeah, I mean, I say power to you. There's been a couple. I'm trying to think which ones I've adored. I know there's a forum thread. I don't know how active it is now, but people were kind of taking mechs and making them into like superheroes, or like kind of embodying the designs of superheroes, which I thought was really cool, because it's fascinating sometimes to see how people take my patterns and do things with them that I never thought were even possible. I realized too, actually, someone recently took tartan, and I think they made the primary black, and it was either the secondary or the tertiary, but in a very bright color. And when I first looked at it, I went, "What the hell is that? I don't remember painting that."
Right?
But because it was so different, it was like, oh, I didn't know you could do that with my pattern. I think that's cool. Kind of like, you guys are exploring things. Oh, it was one of the recent ones. Like, it was like tartan is a standard camo, so that's across the board on everyone, like every mech. But it was especially a mech that I had painted, so I was like, what? What? I know I made this mech. Where'd this come from?
Did you do the Mad Cat 2 at all?
The Mad Cat 2, yes.
Okay, so if I looked at, I'm looking at one of them right now on stream. I'm gonna put it into. We're gonna take a camo spec. Let's see. I don't own. Yeah, I do own one. I got the Jade Falcon one on it, but we can put some crazy colors on this thing here. Let's do that and purple. Okay, that's not what you envisioned, is it?
No.
I wouldn't think so.
Which actually, it's kind of funny too. Like, it's not the best way to kind of like look at our development, but sometimes you can kind of laugh at how it's like, okay, yeah, you know, we make our mechs, like let's say it's a hero, for example, and we make it look pretty and we make it color customizable, and then you guys take it and then throw neon colors onto it, and we're just like, oh, my pretty
Right.
painting.
Yeah,
You
this,
know?
this is I broke it down to its original look, and so that's how we got it. And then I, of course, did that crazy thing with the camo pattern. So see that's the camo pattern itself right there, and that to me just screams shoot me. It's so shiny.
Oh,
and
Jade
everything.
Falcon.
Yeah, Jade Falcon would scream shoot me. All right.
I used to wear like really bright colors in my game, but I think I noticed now I'm already a walking target because I got the little PGI symbol.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that
I noticed once I kind of made myself a little more brown and gray, I don't get shot at as often as I was before.
Well, they did do that change a few patches ago. I can't remember exactly how long ago it was. But I mean, it used to be in this game, no matter, once the mech got more than 100 meters away, it was just, you couldn't make out the patterns, the colors, none of it. And they seemed to fix that a little bit a few patches ago. So it does seem to make a bit of a difference now. But yeah, especially on snow maps. If you're in a white mech on a snow map, it seems to make a little bit of a difference.
Oh yeah.
All right. Did you see another question there you liked?
I might have. Let's scroll up a bit.
Remember, everybody, if you have a question, do like Slippin' Griff is doing with a Q in front of it, or tag Lauren in your question. That way she can spot it a bit easier. Especially if you tag her, because when she's scrolling up in Twitch, it'll highlight that comment. Makes it a lot easier for her to see.
I guess I could use Slippin' Griff's question about the decal. Now, the decals are kind of a little separate to us. Like, all of the texture artists have done work on the decals.
You really do
But it
say
isn't.
decals?
See, I used to say decals. Yeah, it's weird. Like, well, cause I used to always say decal. But then, like, the decal. But once I started at the company, I just adopted it because you just hear it from everyone, and I guess it's just something that started, and now it's just decal.
Well, funny enough, I actually say it quite a bit more now. Ever since we first heard Russ say it on stream, I've been saying it a lot more, and I even say it at work every once in a while if that word happens to come up, and my coworkers or my students always give me that puzzled look, like, "What? What are you talking about?"
What's that? Yeah.
So everybody does work on the decals.
Yeah, on the decal. A lot of different kind of get their hands on it because they're fairly simplistic. There's been some where I was tasked with them because it's like, oh, this is either a little complicated or it requires a little bit of kind of like a hand painting to it. I'm trying to think which ones they were, and they were definitely like unique unit kind of decals. I think there was one in particular that had something about a hand and a book. I think there was one.
Well,
I didn't do it.
CK is asking, can you do me a favor right now? Show Lauren the decal issue with the Mad Cat 2. Place decals on the shins and sides of the arm and see what happens. So
I know the issue that he's talking about.
did it get fixed? 'Cause I'm not seeing an issue here.
I think it's on the front of the legs. Now, I'm fairly certain like the right people are aware of it. But because it's not my thing to fix, like it's not even within kind of like what I do as a texture artist. It's not something I can comment on. But the company's aware.
Okay, he says front of the shins jumps the decal. Oh, yeah. I see what he's saying. Did you see what happened?
Oh yeah. Like I've seen it myself as well.
Okay. Yeah, I see what he's saying. All right. But that's nothing that you can really do anything
That's
about.
nothing that I can really comment on.
Okay. All right. And Slippergriff says I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. Well, duh. I'm a school teacher. Of course I'm not the sharpest knife in the shed.
Oh, is it like if you can't do, teach? You know?
Right, yeah.
I'm sure you've heard that before.
That's that great American education system. All right, so what's next here, Lauren? Or was that it?
I don't know. I think that was kind of it. I need more questions.
Okay.
Unless with this like remaining 7 minutes, if we wind down or however we're gonna close.
Well, I think if we close it out, we just... Oh, there you go. You got one right there. Let's see. Are we going to see any Buccaneer camos that are a bit more sassy, like the older ones?
See, I'm not sure what that means. Sassy.
That's a very subjective word.
My favorite color. That's a good question. I don't know if this is part of being a texture artist, but my favorite color frequently changes. Although I do tend to go back to a nice kind of royal blue, if that makes sense. But I think right now, oddly enough, it's a pastel pink.
Pastel pink. Oh, I've got that color. I think that this one. Oh wait. Colors. Grab a pattern. Colors. That pink right there.
Oh, in game, is it? I think it's called like amaranth.
Yeah,
or
that's what I'm using.
Yeah, that's what I always use in game. I mean, well, now I've kind of made mine a little more dirt and green and olive colored, but yeah, I love that color.
The color I'm trying to get, I've been asking to get in the game for a long time, is the Breast Cancer Research Foundation's hot pink. And what I was originally told a couple years ago, or before decals were introduced to the game, what I was originally told was that someone higher up in PGI said, no, we can't put that color into the game because it's too candy-like. It gives the game too much of a candy toy look. And so the new argument now is, well, with all these stupid decals that we're putting on our mechs with the lips and the eyes and everything. So I hit up Darren. I said, hey, my next charity mechathon is going to be in October, and I'm doing the Breast Cancer Research Foundation again. What are the chances we could get like the Breast Cancer Research ribbon decal, or even just the hot pink color in game that people could purchase with some of the proceeds go into the Breast Cancer Research Foundation? So he said that was something he was going to look at and try to work on. But you don't have to answer that. I was just stating something that came up. So.
Okay. Let's see, I got a number of questions here.
Okay.
Fulgrim, I haven't had the time to stream, but I might in a couple weeks. It's possible.
What was the question?
If I still stream on my time.
Oh, okay.
And I think he means my personal stream, so that's what I assumed. I was doing kind of like 2D, sometimes 3D stuff, which, like, my name's in the chat. If you want to follow me, go ahead. I very rarely stream though. Don't consider me an active streamer. But I do periodically try to kind of like just turn it on, because it helps me focus. I find it kind of keeps me at my desk, or keeps me kind of on the task at hand, which has been super helpful for kind of like my personal projects.
Well, I clicked your name. Apparently I already am following you.
Oh, perfect.
Rest of y'all are just late. Wow, my phone is freaking out. Flash floods, severe thunderstorms.
Oh.
Great day to be in Kansas City. Like, the eclipse was the best thing that happened. We had massive thunderstorms and downpours before the eclipse. Skies opened up just fine during the eclipse, and then immediately after, it's been thunderstorms and lightning all day and evening.
Well, you know what that means then? It's the apocalypse.
Well, yeah. What? Now, I was talking about that with one of my coworkers. We were like, yeah, if we were in ancient times before they really knew anything about astronomy, could you imagine?
We'd
Like,
be freaking out.
yeah, exactly. Amazing. All right. Well, we are about 3 minutes from the top of the hour. What do you say we close this out? Unless you got one more question you want to answer, I totally leave that up to you.
No, I think that's good.
All right. Well, kids, yep, we are going to call it quits here. Lauren, thank you very, very much for doing this interview with me. I greatly appreciate it. Please
Yeah, no problem.
thank Tina as well for me when you see her next.
True. It's a good point to know that I wasn't able to do it without her approval.
Yes, I have to clear all the stuff with Tina, and first I have to clear it with Tina. Well, actually, what I do is I try to hit up the devs personally first, and then if they say they're interested, then I contact Tina, and I'm like, hey, I'd really like to do an interview with so-and-so. Is there any way that would be okay? So, Tina's the community manager, so anything that involves the community, streamers, that sort of thing, that's where she comes in. So, she manages us community folk.
Whoop, Mark's back.
Yes, he is. Mark, we were talking mad shit on you while you were gone.
We were saying so many bad things.
But we are calling it quits for now, though. Everybody, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for the follows, the host. Apparently, Zoof followed me tonight, even though he's been lurking in my stream for the last year.
Wow.
Go figure. But again, Lauren, thank you very much. Thank you to Tina and all of PGI. Really appreciate you doing this. And
yeah, well, definitely thank you for having me. Like, I was really delighted when you reached out to me, and possibly I was a little jealous when I saw that Mark had done it. And I was like, oh, I hope he messages me. So
well,
I was really glad.
Out of all the devs, except for maybe Darren, Mark is the one that I've had the most interactions with. He used to come join me on my streams very frequently, and almost everything we talked about was actually things that we had talked about briefly on my stream a few times before. But I really wanted, and with the new Stargate series coming out, I really thought it'd be a good time to get him on stream, consolidate everything we had talked about in the past, and also discuss the future of Stargate, since he used to be so involved with that. But then going to you for the follow-up interview, I just thought was perfect. And
oh, of course.
We have a slight history in this game from the past too. So again, thank you very much. Everybody, ladies and gentlemen, Lauren Bamlett, PGI texture artist. I know you can't do the sound effects, but yeah, just give her a big round of applause. Thank you very much, Lauren. And with that, kids, we are gonna call it a night. I hope you all have a great night, a great week. And we'll look for another one of these interviews coming for me in a couple weeks, y'all. Good night.
Good night, guys.